Y'all may be seated. The traffic, the boss, the kids, the dogs, Calgon, take me away. That's how a commercial from the late 1970s, early 1980s, advertising a luxurious bubble bath soap started. I know that phrase so well because my Aunt Wendy would often say it when all of us nephews and nieces were driving her crazy at her house. When we were making way too much noise, my great Aunt Teresa would chime in and tell us to go play in the highway. My grandma's house was right next to the little turnaround that led onto the Kennedy Expressway down to Chicago. It wasn't until I was a teenager that I realized just what exactly my Aunt Teresa was telling us. The idea for this soap is that it can provide a moment of peace in the middle of a crazy, stressful, busy life. And I'm sure lots of folks bought into the hype to find just a few precious moments of peace. Calgon, take me away. Good morning, saints. Good morning, sinners. We're lifting up the theme of peace today in our Magnify series. As we join with Mary, the mother of Jesus, we're looking at the ways our souls magnify the Lord this Advent. Pastor Kate spoke to us a few weeks ago about how being lost and found is a way for us to magnify hope. Pastor Jackie lifted up for us how God calls us to magnify the kind of love that takes care of not just the ones you love, but especially the ones you don't want to love. And as we light the third candle of our Advent wreath this morning, we wonder together how God gives us peace. My Advent, my December, has not been off to a peaceful start. It started a couple of weekends ago with a little family trip up to Colorado. I'm honored to be on the board of the Haitian Timon Foundation, and we had a board meeting scheduled in Estes Park the first weekend of December, where we were to meet a consultant who would help strengthen our board and develop us for our mission in Haiti. For those of you who don't know, Susan and I were engaged in Estes Park 14 years ago. So that little part of the Rockies is a very special place in my heart. It is my happy place. I feel at peace when I'm nestled in them and I look out on the scenic vista of those mountains with their pine trees and their mountain breeze. The boys told us at the end of last winter how disappointed they were not to see snow in Texas again and not to be able to use any of their snow days. Caleb thinks he's going to move to Greenland when he turns 18 years old. He's done with Texas already. And I knew that there would be no good way for me to go all the way to Estes Park alone and see those mountains and all the snow. So I invited the family to come along on this business trip as an early Christmas present. We had a few good days meeting old friends in Denver. We wandered up I-70 to Georgetown, just an hour outside of Denver. They have this old railroad on a little bit of a loop, and it's a Santa Claus train. Santa comes out, and you sing Christmas carols. It was a wonderful little experience, and I highly recommend it. But on Sunday of that weekend was our real day to go into the mountains, to go and hang out in Estes for a while. And we began our car ride there. This was the big moment that we were waiting for. We checked into our hotel around dinner time. I took off to go begin a lot of meetings with the Haitian Timon Foundation. The boys were able to run outside a little bit in the cold temps and the snow, and then they went and had dinner. When I returned to my room later that night, I walked into a room with Caleb sleeping next to a trash basket and a look of great concern all over Susan's face. He was not feeling well. He wasn't the only one, because some bug was beginning to work its way through my intestinal system. And one of the longest nights of our lives began at 10 p.m. that night. So over the course of the next 36 hours, Caleb would go down, then me, and then Susan, and we prayed that Joshua and little Sophie would be spared. They were, thankfully. We were only in Estes Park for a couple of days, and the most that the boys saw of the snow was when we loaded the car to come back down the mountain and to the airport. We got on the plane and we came back home for a day and a half, and then we prepared our house to receive 25 family members for my little brother's wedding that weekend. And for the last couple of weeks, I'm not sure if I'm coming or going this Advent. And I wish more than once that Calgon would take me away. And I've realized through this hectic start to my Advent that I've missed the rituals of worship and all the moments of pause that I normally take during the season to prepare my heart for the joy of Christmas. I'm a bit of an Advent devotional junkie, and I look forward to reading through the several devotionals that I have that help me to prepare for Christmas. It just hasn't happened the way I wanted it to this year. I feel like I'm the last person in the world who can stand up to here and talk to you about magnifying peace. But I do feel like I can be the first person to tell you where to turn to when you're feeling lost, crazy, stressed, and besieged by the struggles of life. And that wouldn't be to the bottom of a bottle of Calgon or any other bottle. It would be to turn and face Jesus, who promises us his peace. In the last conversation with his disciples before his arrest, his trial, and his crucifixion, Jesus acknowledges that their hearts are troubled. He keeps warning them about leaving them soon, and he sees how confused they are about this message. They believe that they've come to Jerusalem to take it back from the corrupt religious and governmental leaders. And they're looking to Jesus to be their warrior king. But Jesus doesn't plan to win back Jerusalem or this world through the way of violence. He sees how strength through the threat of violence is the predominant way that the world chooses to offer us peace. He sees also how often it fails to deliver on this promise of peace. He lived in the time of the Pax Romana, or the Roman peace. Rome was the great empire of the time, and their influence all across the Mediterranean region was far-reaching. They were able to establish peace through the threat of great violence to any who disrupted their order. Jesus and his disciples often saw examples of how Rome established peace, and that was through crucifixion on the cross. The Romans were very efficient in how they took care of any who threatened their rule, and they made an example to all others. Their peace was established through fear. But truth be told, their way of offering peace through fear was only the latest in a long line of empires and kingdoms throughout history. Rome was on the same path as the Greeks and the Babylonians and the Assyrians and the Egyptians before them. Eventually, their peace would fall apart, and they would amount to nothing more than a lesson in the history books. Jesus has a different idea on the peace that he wants to give away. His peace will not be secured through a bloody revolution. It will not be instituted by a new government with its rules and regulations. He will not set it up by amassing a big army that will stamp out every threat. He will not even produce or mass produce products that give short-term relief from the troubles of life while they drain our wallets at the same time. He gives peace by simply loving people to the point of his own death. His peace is established through love. My peace I give to you, Jesus says. Not as the world gives, do I give. My peace I give to you. The world gives us peace that is temporary, transactional, and in short supply. It is guaranteed by the sword, or the gun, or the tank, or the bomb. It does not last. This is why our hearts are troubled so often when we depend upon the peace our world gives us. The threats of life are real and all around us. There's a feeling that our lives are out of control and accelerating at a pace that we can't keep up with. There's the worry that comes from fearing the stranger or anything different than what we know. And there's the sadness that comes when death takes away our loved ones, and knowing that death has our number too. Our hearts are right to be troubled. But Jesus tells us that they don't have to stay troubled when we receive his peace. The peace Jesus gives us is unconditional, unlimited, and guaranteed by his love shown on the cross. Jesus' peace first puts us in a right relationship with God, which is important not to underestimate. I know that in our culture it is more acceptable and common not to have any feeling toward God whatsoever, but Martin Luther warns us here. He says that what you set your heart on becomes your God. So we have to be careful what we set our hearts on. Often our little gods, little g, little gods of work and entertainment and relationships, they fall through on us. And when they fall through, our hearts go back to their troubled setting. Jesus' peace extended to us through the cross establishes a full relationship with a loving God who embraces everything wrong about us so that we can be made whole. This is the ancient Hebrew understanding of shalom, which is hiding behind and beneath this word peace. Shalom is about wholeness. It's about restoration. It's about things as they were intended to be and not as they are. It's about resting in God's grip that supports and sustains and strengthens you to experience the fullness of life all around you. By coming back from the dead, Jesus brings us pieces of the future when all will be made well and all is made right. Shalom. Jesus' peace takes care of our troubled hearts by being bigger than the trouble in our hearts. It does so by giving us the courage to face whatever life wants to throw our way. This peace is developed by a life of faith that trusts God to take care of that which is beyond our control in life. Jesus had to live this out with his own life when he trusted his heavenly Father by willingly going to the cross. It was through prayer that he received that peace that surpasses all understanding, which strengthened him to accept the suffering of the cross and death. He wasn't spared from it. He wasn't saved from the pain and the torture and the humiliation of the cross. But from there, he could look beyond it to see the greater part that he was playing in God's crazy plan to redeem and bless this whole world. I saw this kind of peace in action a couple years ago with a little bit of a scary incident that happened here in our own worship setting. One of our members, they go to the early service, he dropped his blood pressure and he passed out in his pew. And this was well after the sermon, so it wasn't like my preaching caused this, That happens a lot, not at all around here. It was right during the time of communion. He dropped his blood pressure and he passed out in the pew. And our ushers were quick to act and revived him and got him to the office where he waited for Plano's finest to come and escort him to the hospital. While we waited in the office, I sat and I spoke with his wife, who was just unflappable in the face of everything that was going on. She kept saying over and over to me, she says, "Don't you worry about me, Pastor. God is taking care of him. I'm fine." She said she was fine. I wasn't fine at all. I was very nervous for the situation that was going on, and I couldn't believe how calm she was. I realized she was that calm because she had Jesus' peace tucked deep inside of her heart. And that peace told her that God was in control, which gave her the courage to sit there calmly. Finally, Jesus' peace gives us a vision of the future. And I'm a firm believer that what we believe about our futures determines what we do today. The prophet Isaiah talks to us about what this future will be like. Everything in God's creation will get along. Wolf and lamb, lion and goat, cow and bear, child and snake, Cowboys fans and Eagles fans, Longhorns and Sooners, everything getting along fine together. It is the ultimate vision of peace and shalom. The wars that nations fight will be no more. The wars that neighbors wage against each other will be gone. The wars going inside of us, where our desires get the best of us and they lead us on paths of regret, gone. It will all be taken care of in God's future. You see, those of us who believe in Jesus are pretty unique in this world. We're unique because we know how the final chapter of this whole project of creation turns out. And it turns out good, which means that the troubles that we face today will never be there forever. And this is what made Jesus so special in life. He didn't live by just reacting to the troubles of today. He knew that there was a limitless supply of them. Instead, he responded to the troubles of today with the peace of the future, where God has taken care of all that worries our hearts. Jesus' peace in our lives gives us that same assurance. Our work today is based on our beliefs tomorrow, and we believe that God will take care of us all, which means that our work today is to partner with God in making that tomorrow a reality for those who aren't experiencing peace in their lives right now. My prayer for you this Advent, this third Sunday of Advent, is for you to experience the peace that Jesus alone gives. The peace that passes all understanding. The peace of a loving relationship with God, who is taking care of your tomorrows so that your hearts will no longer be troubled today. Amen.